Right, good morning everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the local review body of the 14th of May. I can confirm that the meeting has been properly called and is quorate. Could I please ask members to firstly elect a chairman for the meeting?
Councillor Driver.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Driver.
Good morning members and welcome to this meeting of the local review body on the 14th of May. I'd just like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be recorded and the recording will be subsequently available for public listening. Can I ask the clerk to take the review body through the documents and papers for this meeting?
Thank you, Chairman. Can I firstly confirm the Sederunt for the meeting? Councillor McCutcheon isn't present this morning. I'm unavailable and I don't have any apologies for her.
I think she wasn't at a meeting last night, Councillor McComb was saying, so I think we could take that as apologies.
Okay. Thank you. And there's no declarations of interest today. Okay. Thanks very much. Okay, I can confirm there's one notice of review for consideration at this meeting, that being item 4, Wheatcroft, Castle Douglas, refusal of planning permission in principle for erection of dwelling house 13P20305. The grounds for refusal are on page 72 of your papers. That it has not been demonstrated that a new dwelling house is essential for the needs of the agricultural business at this location. The proposal would therefore be contrary to the requirements of Dumfries and Galloway Structure Plan Policies D4 and Stewardship Local Plan General Policy 15. The requested method of determination on page 9 are that the applicant has requested that the review be dealt with 1. on the basis of further written submissions and 2. by means of an inspection of the land which is subject of the review. The grounds stated in the notice of review are, in summary, that the applicant considers that the grounds for refusal are contrary to the advice given by the former Chief Planner in a letter dated 4th November 2011. There were no objections from statutory consultees or members of the public, and the report on handling raises no issues, landscape quality or natural heritage. Accordingly, they consider that there was no justification for the case officer to insist on the submission of a land management or business case. The requirement in the development plan requiring the submission in all such cases exceed the requirements of such plans and are contrary to the advice of the Chief Planner. And even if the policies are justified, they consider that the need for the house is justified. The interpretation that a need must be shown for a full-time employee equivalent of 2,200 hours per annum is an entirely arbitrary assessment chosen by the planning officer without justification in either the structure plan or the local plan. You also have comments of interested parties in your papers and the relevant development plan policies. So the main issues for the LRB to consider today: does the proposal conform with the relevant development plan policies, and in particular structural plan policy D4? In respect to this policy, is the LRB satisfied that it is essential and not merely desirable for a new dwelling house to be erected at this location, and that this need has been adequately demonstrated? And if the LRB considers that the proposal does not comply with the development plan, are there any material considerations which would indicate that planning permission should be granted to the contrary? And how much weight, if any, does the LRB wish to give to the letter from the former Chief Planner dated 4th November 2011 and the applicant's particular interpretation of it, noting the appointed officer's comments on page 39 in this regard? So, having outlined the documents within the members' papers, it now falls to the LRB to determine whether it has sufficient information to consider the review. It is confirmed that no representations from any party will be heard today. The LRB has the following options. It can decide it has sufficient information before it to enable it to determine the review today, request further information in the form of written representations. In doing this, the LRB would have to state precisely what information it is seeking and who must provide it. Resolve to hold a hearing, again specifying who will be invited to speak and on what matters, or resolve to hold a site visit, accompanied or unaccompanied. This can be done in conjunction with any of the above, but would obviously not allow a decision to be made today. And if the LRB resolves it has sufficient information and that no further procedure is required, then the local review body has the powers to uphold, reverse or vary a determination. The decision notice will include a statement of the terms in which the planning authority has decided the case reviewed. A planning advisor will be present to assist for this item. It is confirmed that he did not have any involvement in any of the case and was not the case officer or the appointed officer for the application. He is purely here to provide independent advice as needed on matters of planning, policy, law or process to the local review body. So if members are clear and no further clarification is required, I will ask the chairman now to lead the debate and for the first instance to lead the local review body through the agenda papers together and decide if it has sufficient information before it to make a determination today.
Thank you very much. David, have we got any photographs of the site?
Yes, thank you, Chair. These are basically the photos that you've got at the end of your agenda, page 83 to 85. So the first slide is looking west from the A713 towards the site. The site's actually in the foreground, and the houses that you're seeing behind, that's Wheatcroft cottages. So basically the green area of land in the centre of the slide and slightly to the right is the main application site. This is looking the other direction. There's an access road that runs along there. So it's looking east along that access road, and you've got Wheatcroft cottages in the foreground, and as the next one moves slightly further along. So the access to the proposed site, it's just beyond the end of the houses there, off the access road into the right. And that indeed is the very access point. And that's looking back, so you're seeing Wheatcroft cottages and the associated buildings related to it.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, with your leave, can we go through each part of the report in sections, and then if there are any questions or clarification that's required, then we can ask either David or the clerk to do that. So looking at part 4, which is on page 1 of 86, there is the notice of the review and the list of documents that are actually there. Are we happy with that?
Chair, could I give some advice on page 8? At the bottom of that, you'll notice the reasons for requiring review. The agent had actually ticked both boxes. There was an email exchange when the application was originally submitted just to clarify that. So the second box that you're seeing there, not determined by the planning authority within the prescribed period, that doesn't apply in this case. The grounds for an actual decision was issued, so it's only the top ground. The bottom ground only applies where a non-determination review is sought. So we've got email confirmation that that one doesn't apply.
Everybody clear about that? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any points of clarification in the rest of that section? Okay, going on to report and handling, page 17 of 86, and the delegated report. Are there any questions from that page to page? To page 36. Yes, Councillor Diggle.
I just wondering what the state of the woodland is. Is it a new planting, or is it an established one? Or
I'm unaware of that, I'm afraid.
Councillor McComb.
Right. In relation to the woodland, is there any information indicating what proportion of the business income comes from it?
Chair, the only thing I can refer you to is on page 67, where at the top of that page it does make reference to the 8 acres of woodland is managed with the various compartments thinned as required, with the thinnings used for firewood, etc. So there's no more than that. If you look down on the labour requirement, you've got acres, woodland, hours per annum 25, total 200. So obviously it has been taken into account as part of the labour requirement.
Okay, we're then going to part 3, which is observation of the appointed officer and the applicant's notice of review, which is page 37 to 40. Any questions on that? And then on to part 4, which is comments, applications, agents and observation of the appointed officer, which is page 41. On to page 46. Any? Okay. Page 5 then, the plan application form dated 18th October. Page 47. Through to page 68, yeah. Anything? Councillor Diggle?
Do we have I found some of the maps slightly confusing, to be honest. Do we have a map with the total agricultural area that we're talking about and the position of the actual house or proposed house?
I understand that the case officer had sought that, and what you have on page 53 is the only actual ordnance survey-based plan, but the applicant appears to have been able to submit further details on page 57, 59 and 61, showing the relevant pieces of land that they own on the, I think it's a Bing map, which they've actually used for that, which was considered acceptable by the case officer to allow them to see the overall picture of the land ownership. Yeah.
On page 68, there's a reference to Wheatcroft cottages being a small housing group. Is that equated to a small building group?
The site isn't a small building group, so it's certainly you've got one semi-detached property there on the site at the moment, but it's not identified as a small building group in the council's development plan.
Okay, moving on to part 6, which is a decision letter from Dumfries and Galloway Council on page 69 to 73. Anything on that? And then relevant extracts from Dumfries and Galloway, page 75 to 80. And then we have already seen the photographs today. Okay. The options available, as outlined before by the clerk, was that we can decide that we have sufficient information before us to enable a determination today, or we can request other items as we go through. Does anyone want to start at this particular time? I think from my perspective, I think we've got enough in this report to determine a decision today, if that is okay with members. Okay, first of all, ask any, is there any questions from members regarding the whole report that's before you today? In which case, as I said before, I think we've got enough evidence and the report in front of us to make a determination today. I think the outcome of what the officers have said within the report goes along with the policies that we have determined as the Planning Applications Authority. And in that case, I would actually suggest that we go along with the officers' recommendations in this particular case. But I'm open up to members to see if they wish to ask or determine something else. Councillor Diggle?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going on to the policy D4 on page 77 of number 5, that it's essential that the location for the needs of agriculture and use and other uses. I don't think it's been demonstrated that there is an essential use, and having a similar size small holding of myself and lamb 70 odd hours, you know, I think the figures on page 67 giving the labour requirements for such an enterprise could be severely questioned.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Jim?
The policy D4 uses this phrase, essential for the needs of agriculture. And I don't know of any other way in which you can judge essential other than looking at the labour requirements. It is clear the labour requirements do not provide sufficient hours for a full-time employee. But there will be times of the year when it is essential to have someone certainly in close proximity to the land. Lambing time, for instance.
David, do you want to come back on that one?
Yeah, and there's a number of things. It's probably worth stressing, if you look back through the comments of the applicant's agent, they alleged that the case officer, in coming to their conclusion on this, had chosen an arbitrary figure. I should probably give you a bit of background that the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries used to be in a position to actually say, yes, this is an essential need or not, and they provided that information to planning authorities until the late 1990s. They then stopped doing that, so an alternative method of actually looking at what constitutes an essential need had to be found. So at that time, I understand the council took on the SAC, Scottish Agricultural College, as the method of independently assessing whether or not there was an essential need. So they are the ones who have, through their own methodology, come up with this 220 hours per annum as equating to one labour unit. And you'll note that although it's not an SAC report, the case officer seems to have been happy with the Smith-Gore report that you see that's mentioned on page 67 as well. So it's not actually the case officer that's come up with this arbitrary figure, that's the applicant's own figure of the 0.8 labour units. Now, to be essential, it's normally considered that you must be 1 unit or more. Now, there will, as you rightly say, there will be needs at different times of the year, but I note the applicant's address is given as Wheatcroft Cottages, which is immediately adjacent to the site. So, while she might not have her own independent property, she does appear to have an ability to look after the land on the site.
Okay, any other questions? All right, then, as I said before, I think we've got enough information in front of us to determine a decision today, and I've suggested that we go along with the officer's recommendations in this particular case. Is there any other suggestions? Okay, there's no other suggestions, therefore we'll go with the recommendation. Clerk, can you?
Okay, thank you. So I can confirm that the local review body have agreed to uphold the decision of the appointed officer and refuse the planning permission in principle for the erection of a dwelling house at Wheatcroft, Castle Douglas for the same reasons that are in your papers, it has not been demonstrated that a new dwelling house is essential for the needs of the agricultural business at this location. The proposal would therefore be contrary to the requirements of Dumfries and Galloway Structure Plan Policies D4 and Stewardship Local Plan General Policy 15.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got no further business. That will be the closure of the local review body. Thank you.